Okay, now the next step is we start the configuration for the router, and we're gonna do the first router to the left, which we call router 1. And a reminder, this is connected to two networks. One network here is 192.168.10, and the other one is 192.168.30. So we configure the router by double clicking on the router, and we go to the tab that has the CLI, which stands for command line interface. And then to be able to configure the router, as you see by default, we get this prompt when it boots. If it's a fresh router, has no configuration, it will ask us to go to setup mode, and we just say no, because we basically want to go to the command line interface. Now, what exactly we do now is we start doing the different commands to be able to configure this router to route traffic appropriately from one network to others. Now, the first thing you get, this is known as the router prompt, and it tells you basically what mode you are in. The router has multiple modes. Each mode is capable of doing a different set of commands. And this mode that you start with is basically the least privileged mode that has the minimum set of commands you can execute. And this is known as a user mode. And to be able to go to a more privileged mode, we go to the enabled mode by typing enable command. We were not prompted with any password at this moment because this is a new router, and then next we're going to assign a password for a router, so that won't be the case next time we boot. Now, as you see, the prompt has changed. Now, instead of greater sign, we have the pound sign, and the pound sign means you are in a different mode, which is named as privileged mode. And then the next step would be we go to the configuration mode, because that is the mode that allows me to start changing configurations. And the first thing I want to change is the router name, and I'll type host name R1. As you see, the prompt has changed the router name from the default name, which is router, to R1, and that means this is a new name for this router. Now, the next thing usually we do is we set a password for the router. Like in this case, I'm changing the enabled password to and I'm making it Cisco. And also, most common things that get configured is the interfaces of the router. Just as a reminder, this router has two interfaces, the FA0/0 and the serial 0/0. So how do we configure the interfaces? We go ahead and do int for interface, and we pick the interface that we want to configure. And notice that the command changed from global configuration to specifically the interface configuration, and that's known as the interface configuration mode. And what do we do over there? We just assign the right IP address. We have the Ethernet interface hooked up to the first network from our IP address space, and we basically grab the first address from that network and assign it to this interface. And then we do the no shutdown command to make sure it comes up. And as you see here, the router fast Ethernet hardware status became up and the protocol status became up, and that's how we want it. Both should be up. We need to do the same for the second interface that we are using, which is the serial, and we assign IP address in a very similar manner. We have the 3.1 in this case because that's the number 3 network, and we're doing no shutdown. And notice here that this interface is the DCE side. It has a clock side, which means you have to do the clock rate at this interface to make it work. And now we can go to the privilege mode. Notice to go back we type exit and one more exit, so we are now at the privilege mode, and here where we can save our configuration. And we do that by saying copy the running configuration command to the startup configuration command, so that if we boot we don't lose the configuration we have just done. And notice that it will prompt you, are you sure it's a startup-config? All what you do is just press enter, and that would take care of it.